Hi, everybody. Welcome. Today, my guest is Grayham Forscutt, a galactic astrologer and a multidimensional psychology expert. He's here to talk to us about those topics today. How are you, Grayham?
I'm sitting here in the middle of winter in my van, and we've just had the coldest night and the frostiest morning, so I'm kind of gloved up, but ready to go. So thanks again. We've done one before and hopefully more to come. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to share some of these ideas.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, everybody loved your information last time, so I'm excited for this new information that you're going to be sharing with us today. So go ahead and get started and just let me know anything that you need, please.
Okay. So first off, we're going to bring up some slides reasonably soon, and we'll go through those and then we'll chat after that as well.
Mhm.
So this is about what I've been studying for about 35 to 40 years, as well as astrology. I've studied what they used to call initiations. We have better words for it these days, but it's a realm of where at each level, each dimension of reality, there's a broadening of overview of what's going on, and there's a number of sort of details that we could express, that we could mention about how that works as far as the metaphysics of it. So I'd like to sort of mention a little bit about that first,
Mhm.
how the dimensions interact a little bit, and
Mhm.
then we're going to go on and have a little look at some charts, astrology charts,
Mhm.
based around what we did in our previous video, which
Mhm.
is heliocentric astrology, the real position of the planets, which is not in other astrologies, whether that's Vedic astrology or geoastrology or sidereal astrology or common starseed astrology. So we're looking at charts for the planets in their true position. So we're going to take a look at what has just gone on in the last maybe 3.5 to 4 years. They're going to update that to what's gone on with the last full moon and what's taken place. We're talking about the US and the US politics and how
Mhm.
that impact, how the astrology has impacted them in this previous 4 year cycle. How that's changed since the last full moon and the couple of weeks before that. So that brings us up to the present. And then we've got a chart and we're going to look at what's going to take place as
Mhm.
far as the planets are concerned coming up exactly on November the 5th, which is the election day. And then we're going to link that to next year, January 20th, which is their inauguration day for the next sort
Mhm.
of president. So we're going to have a look at all that, but we're going to make some comments about the history of the ETs that have been on the planet and how they're interacting, positive and negative, leading up to this moment, how everything has changed in the last 4 years or so,
Mhm.
and everything said, or most things said previously about the planetary situation and the controllers, the deep state and all that, how that has shifted in this previous 4 year cycle due to what's going on in the US.
Mhm. Wow, that's so exciting. So much good information to get into today. I love that.
Hopefully so. Hopefully so.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to start if we're ready to go ahead.
Yeah.
This goes back hundreds of thousands of years. So we go back hundreds of thousands of years. You've got what I, what I'd call galactic politics. So you've got different ET groups arriving in different star systems. I got a glyph which we'll show soon enough, but coming outwards from the galactic center to
Mhm.
come out in this direction, you have to pass the constellation of Lyra, and Lyra is like a bunch of stars.
Mhm.
And from there, that's where the original human DNA template was set in motion as
Mhm.
a kind of like a holographic thought form from the Galactic Center administration. And then as the race was evolving in the stars or in the star systems in Lyra, eventually they came out in this direction and they inhabited stars in Orion, Andromeda, Arcturus, Sirius, the Pleiades, and so on and so on.
Mhm.
Some of them are good, some of them are bad. They're chasing each other around a little bit, or at least the negatives chasing the positive.
Mhm.
And eventually they arrive here on Earth and the history begins. And this goes back hundreds of thousands of years. So
Mhm.
some of these ETs, they're landing in different parts of the planet. They set up camp in different areas on the planet. For example, the Arcturians set up camp basically in southern in the Southern Ocean under Sri Lanka and India. That was called Moog, M-U, and they were guiding the original, what I'd call the original human race, basically the primates, and how they sort of evolved through the Nathandra and so on. So they were guiding that in the Indian Ocean, that eventually moved over into the Pacific, Easter Island, Australia, Hawaii, etc., etc., even Alaska, going down through the Americas, the Mayan. That's all part of the Acturian project, guiding a kind of a natural evolution, not trying to intrude on it in any way. Over in Mesopotamia, we have different ETs arriving there. We've got a number of groups from different stars in Orion, and also from Sirius A and Sirius B. So that's sort of the Sumerian storyline. So they are setting up there. They've got positive and negatives. This is the famous Inky and Enlil storyline. They're battling amongst themselves for the real estate of Earth. Their race itself, or the negatives, massive problems. They're not capable of doing things the way the positive ETs are doing. We'll perhaps get into a little bit of that. So they are here under stress. They're trying to, as well as sort of take over the Earth, they're trying to graft their own DNA into, basically they were sort of grabbing the almost the primates or the early humans from the Horn of Africa, and they were sort of blending their genetics in there and trying to create a slave labor force and so on and so on. So, but they were here with a project. This is the negatives. They were here with a project which was desperate for them. Their race was dying out, in the sense that negative actions, negative thoughts, and so on create discoherence in the DNA. So their collective memory and their collective DNA was devolving rather than evolving. This was also taking place with some of the Syrians. There's the Syrian Bs and the Syrian As. The storyline goes is that the Syrian Bs are the positives. That's Jesus was a starseed from Sirius B. So the Syrian As are here as well. They've got their own problems. This is if I can't remember whether you mentioned this in the last interview or not. The Independence Day, July the 4th, that's exactly lined up to Sirius, that date. The sun and the earth exactly lining up with Sirius. And the Syrian A's, their kind of mode of operation is in the contemporary era is the military complex. George Bush, born on that day, representing that, sending over the troops to Iraq and so on. And in Atlantis, there were ETs there. They were different again. They were Pleiadian and Aldebaran. So again, there was a number of groups from Pleiades and the Aldebarians there, which is not far from the Pleiades. So some of the Pleiadian and some of the Aldebarian, they were negative as well. They were battling also in Atlantis. The scientists there eventually partly involved in the destruction of Atlantis, along with the natural cycles, the flood, and so on and so on. So natural cycles, the 13,000 year cycles based on the position of the Earth's equinoxes. So as the timeline was unfolding, we get a little bit more recent. So we go back about 13,000 years now, and we've got these different ETs and their projects on different parts of the planet. So as Atlantis was sinking, some of the ETs from Atlantis, Pleiadian, Aldebarian, and some of their, I'll call them slave labor, some of their genetic experiments, they left Atlantis, which was in the Atlantic, Spain and Portugal, part of Atlantis. It sank. They left there and they went up past the island up to the Arctic. From the Arctic, they came down then. Some of them came down into Scotland. Some came down through Scandinavia and ended up being the Germanic races and the Scandinavian races there. So some of the Aldebarians were in say like 100 years ago, were the ones that were whispering in the ear of the Nazis and Hitler and so on. If we do Hitler's chart, he's astrogenetically born on the date connected to Aldebaran. So the Aldebarans end up going to the Antarctic. And then the other side of it is we've got in Mesopotamia, in the Sumerian storyline, those ETs, as things were collapsing 13,000 odd years ago, some of them went from where they were in Mesopotamia. This is North Africa and Iraq and those countries. They left there and went to Turkey. Eventually, later on along the timeline, they're battling with the what they call the Hyperboreans, which is the Atlantean, Pleiadian, Aldebarans, who had come down through Europe down into Greece. So eventually we had the storyline of the Helen of Troy, where the Greeks battled those from Troy over Helen and so on. So as that battle concluded, those from Mesopotamia through via Turkey ended up in Italy, and that ended up becoming Rome and the Roman Church and so on. So we have a number of different groups of ETs in the past here on the planet trying to achieve different goals, eventually arriving in this contemporary era. And we see the problems that have unfolded in the last few hundred years. Some of the positive ETs from Mesopotamia, this is the Mary Magdalene bloodline. They, of course, Mary Magdalene and family went up through France, over to the UK, the Grails storyline, and of course then moving over to the States, took that bloodline over to the States. So it's a deep and complex story, and we're kind of simplifying and summarizing a lot of that storyline. So with that in mind, we kind of arrive into the modern era, and we're faced with this situation that we see has been going on for the last few hundred years. But I've got a few images on the PDF if you want to have a look at those, or if you have something to input there.
That'd be wonderful to see the images. If you want to share screen, that would be great. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let you do it. Technology.
And for some reason, it's not there. Okay.
Let me make sure that I've shared it with you. Yeah.
Oh.
There we go.
Can you see that? Can you see that now?
Let me see. No, I don't see yours yet.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's the only thing on my screen at the moment. So
Okay.
if I
maybe try opening and closing it again or something like that, the share screen.
okay. Where's it gone? Here it is. So
Good. We got it.
it's popped up there.
Yes. Perfect.
Okay. So I've got these images here, and I'll just make it a little bit bigger if I can. And that seems to have disappeared, that little button to make it bigger. Ah, there it is.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
So here we are. So we're just backtracking a little bit here in the sense that we're going to start from a sort of a multi or high dimensional viewpoint, just to get us underway here. So in a realm or a dimension which has different names from different teachings or different schools of thought. So in the early theosophy, this is Helena Blavatsky and Alice Bailey and so on. They have what they call the monad or the oversoul, which is at a certain dimension. So in its own realm, they call that the sixth dimension, or they call it the monadic level, the sixth level of reality, starting from the bottom up. Now, other schools of thought, there's the Kabbalah and the Tree of Life, they would call it, they have a name that's just Adziluth, which is Kopma. So that is the realm of the oversoul, the realm of the higher self, the realm of the monad. We have other schools of thought which call it a 15-dimensional system. So dimensions 15, 14, and 13. That's what we're talking about here. Then we've got the Ra material. They use octaves. We have the first octave is the physical reality, second octave, emotional reality, and so on. And when you get to the 6th level of, they call it density, then we have the realm of the oversoul. So this is what we're looking at here. And we have famous adepts from the Himalayas. This is, in this case, it's Saint Germain, who has written or has dictated books and so on in the past, recent past. And he would say that, or he has said, that a monad has 144 souls within the monad. And they give this sort of square glyph. So it's like a drawing, a 2-dimensional drawing, where you have the kind of the center of the monad, if you like, and then you have an extension of 12 souls forming a sort of like a soul group, and then 12 more from each of these 12 here, and you end up with 144 souls, which is the monad. It's not just one, it's 144. So that's the realm of where the different ETs have arrived, or their original oversoul coming out of Lyra. And part of those souls and soul groups, some of them go to Orion, some go to Arcturus, some go to Andromeda, etc., etc. So eventually, of course, each soul becomes mature, goes through the dimensions, reconnects first, and then eventually each soul becomes back or reforms into the soul group, becomes the monad at the 6th level, the 6th density. And this image here, this is a model. It's a picture of a model I've made. So each one of these, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 12 of them there. And those 12 fit around the central hub here. And then inside each one of these there, that you can see them inside there, there's 12 smaller, exact same repeat versions of this bigger one. So 12 inside there, 12 inside there, 12 inside there, so on and so on. And you've got 144 within this unit, this complex here. And the beauty of this one is it is based, every dimension, every size, all the volumes and all the maths and the geometry and so on, is all based on the golden ratio mathematics. And the golden ratio mathematics, another way of calling that, terming that, is it's called the phi ratio, PHI. And this phi ratio is the most economic and the best way to pack units together, compress units together, so in such a way that universe has the least expenditure of energy. It's the most economical way of doing it. And when they're clustered like this is the same shape as when you read in the books about a certain group of angels, 144. If you multiply 144 by 12, which just means you get that this whole complex here, and pack 12 of them together, you end up with 1,726 of exactly the same sort of smaller shapes in there. And that's another in the ancient books, groups of angels, 1,726 angels got together and went and did a project and so on. So we're looking at here the actual shape, the actual plasma, even though it's made out of cardboard, each of these is like a plasma form, a plasma light body, dark or invisible plasma. So we're looking at the actual shape of the oversoul, the monad. So that's just bringing that into sort of how we're going to express some of these ideas as we move down here.
Yes, and that number 144, we see it all the time. So it's nice to see all the way that it applies to different spiritual things. So that's very interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what the word fractal means. If you find things repeating and repeating and repeating, it's embedded in the universe, it's embedded in reality, it's embedded in all the dimensions, etc., etc. So not much I can add to this one. I've kind of said this, but
Yeah.
here's the same shape. Here's the same shape again,
Yeah.
made like a sort of a lamp. When we meditate, we can sort of develop this and charge it up via
Like we
our
sit
intent.
inside of that shape when we meditate and fill up that with energy. That would be, yeah, that's interesting.
It is one way of doing it.
Mhm.
What really takes place is when we want to sort of interact with higher dimensions or
Mhm.
bring larger realities into our consciousness, then what we're doing really is that while we're meditating, our brainwave states become golden ratio. This is alpha, theta, and delta, and so on. The thresholds, golden ratios. Then we have our heart, which beats more slowly while we're meditating, measurably golden ratio harmonics in our heart rate.
Mhm.
Then our breathing slows down based on the harmonics of the golden ratio. Our DNA starts to sort of the embeds there. There's sort of like a up and down, up and down, up and down of the DNA,
Mhm.
in the sense that it's weaving more DNA strands, you know, the 12-strand DNA and so on.
Mhm.
And then if we're, for example, meditating, we've got all the golden ratio within our anatomy, within our being, embedding into the golden ratio. But then if we do it on a certain day when there's a full moon or an eclipse, if we do it at dawn and dusk, if we do it on an Earth grid point, on the Earth's grid, then each of these is also golden ratio, and we're embedding into larger and larger golden ratio constructs or waveforms. And
Mhm.
as we're doing that, we're entertaining higher dimensions, or we're interacting with larger realms of consciousness where we have broader and broader overview as we do so.
That's so cool. I love that. I love that.
All measurably provable.
Yeah.
The maths have been done.
Yeah.
Famously, Dan Winter's the go-to person that is on the cutting edge of that.
Yeah.
So with that understanding in mind, that the golden ratio is the template of fractality,
Mhm.
which connects all levels of reality in the most coherent and most efficient way. So this is just some research. We're not going to spend a great deal of time here,
Mhm.
but this is just how it works. For example, here's the normal zodiac, looking at it from the sun's point of view in the center here. I know I'll make it a little bit bigger.
I mean, a little bit, yeah, be good. Perfect. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Yeah, that's good. People can see it now. Yeah, very good.
Okay. So this image here is just the normal zodiac map we're looking at here. So
Mhm.
at this point in Earth's history,
Mhm.
and our sun's orbiting the galaxy. So at this point in time, when I'm not saying this second, I mean this century kind of thing. So at this point in time, our solar system is interacting with some of the other star systems. We have over here Aldebaran, we've got the Pleiades here, we've got Sirius here,
Mhm.
we have Arcturus here. Then and these are related to each other from the viewpoint of our solar system in this current era. It is relating with some of these other star systems measurably in the mathematics that
Mhm.
form the geometric sort of template to get the golden ratio. So this is our solar system during this, say, 100-year or so era. I'll call it 144-year era.
Mhm.
Where right at this time, this is the Mayan calendar, this is the reappearance of Christ, and so on. Measurably, when we look at the solar system interacting with not only stars locally in our part of the galaxy, but we're
Mhm.
also interacting with even larger scenarios, larger um, cosmic locations. So over here, this is just a quick kind of rundown here. I just simply
Mhm.
overlaid photographs or maps from the astronomers. So we got the Pleiades here with Alcyone in the middle here. I know it's a bit hard to see, but the other stars in the Pleiades are actually positioned on these nodes of the decagon. The decagon is the only polygon, the only regular polygon where the radius, which starts here, goes out to the circumference. The radius and the edge length is in golden ratios. It's the only regular polygon. It's a cross section of the DNA helix. So when I laid this golden ratio template, the decagon, onto maps just taken by astronomers, there's one here where this is looking from our galaxy. So it doesn't matter whether we're in the Pleiades or Orion or anywhere. When our galaxy looks at the center of the cluster of galaxies that we're embedded in, we see here, the nodes there, there's a galaxy there, there's one there, there's one there, there's one here, there's another one there, there's a couple there. And we're looking back through time along the DNA helix. The spiral here is coming out in this direction, and our galaxy is sort of bedded in here, and we're looking back through time. But this whole complex here, we'll call this a larger waveform. We're embedding in a higher dimension. We're interacting with a longer timeline, past and future. But beyond, further afield, looking behind this cluster of galaxies that we're embedded in, is this here, which they call the Laniakea. It's a Hawaiian name, and it's a mega cluster of galaxies. And at the center of that is what they call the Great Attractor by the astronomers. So the Great Attractor is sorry?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Is that like a black hole because it's like pulling things into the center of a galaxy, or something else?
Yeah, yes, the black hole is a 3D astronomer's name. In the 5D, it's not a black hole. It's going through the center of a vortex, through the center of a torus, a donut shape. And galaxies, the North Pole of our Milky Way galaxy is pointed directly in this location. Sorry, this one here. Right. So the North Pole of our galaxy, the torus with the North Pole, the vortex, the black hole from 3D world, our North Pole of our galaxy is pointing here at the center, and threaded like Kundalini going up the spine and the chakras are other galaxies which are threaded, linking from our galaxy through the North Pole to other galaxies. Eventually you get to the center here.
So is that how the Earth receives energies from those places downloaded into it through the North Pole? Probably.
Yes, we've got a map. I think it's it's the very next one.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's the very next one. So we'll sort of explain that a little bit there. So looking beyond our local supercluster of galaxies, we've got the center of the Laniakea supercluster here, and at the center is the Great Attractor. So again, we're looking at kind of not quite directly down the throat of it, but we're looking sort of slightly off to the side. But we can definitely see that other clusters of galaxies are forming in this very decagon way. It's visibly there. The evidence is there. But behind this supercluster, we get to what astronomers call the center of our universe, where not only are galaxies being sort of drawn towards the Great Attractor. You can get images by Google searching of how that works, a little kind of GIF. Beyond the Great Attractor, or beyond this cluster, supercluster, you end up at what they call the Shapley supercluster, largest grouping of mega clusters in the universe. And they know that this group, this whole Laniakea, and other mega clusters of galaxies are being drawn towards the Shapley. This is astronomy. This comes from the Hawaiian astronomers. And again, we see visually that the universe, I've got other maps of this, is also unfolding in the same way as what we saw here, etc. And looking down our DNA helix is the same thing. So over here is a snapshot of what our heart is doing when we're meditating. And it is also, it looks like a pentagon, but it's actually 5 in the middle. So that is also a decagon. So we're looking through backwards in time, threading helical waves, more strands of the DNA, back through history towards the cosmic center, the original beginning point of the kind of at least the physical the 15-dimensional reality, the seven density reality, etc.
And where is the center?
So now
This is the center,
sorry,
the one that you were just talking about, that center. Where is that? Which that's in
this one
Virgo
here.
cluster? Yeah. Which
Oh,
galaxy
oh,
is
sorry.
the
Sorry, I should have linked it over here. So
what?
here's our solar system in real time,
Yes.
where we are during this 144 year period. You know, the precision of the equinoxes changes things over
Yeah.
a 26,000 year cycle. But at the moment, the direction to the Shapely is out through about 3 degrees of tropical Scorpio. If we go 36 degrees, up to here, we get to the direction to the great attractor. Down here, this arrow is pointing out to the supergalactic center, this one. It's 72 degrees from the center of the, over here to the supercluster. It's 72 degrees up here to the arrow pointing to the great attractor, this one here. So our solar system orbiting the galaxy, our local Milky Way galaxy, at this time is fractally, golden ratio, fractally connected not only to other stars like Pleiades and so on in the golden ratio way, but it's at a time when we're looking out at these larger and larger waveforms, these larger and larger superclusters and so on, using the same geometry, the same mass, the same golden ratio. We call it embedding into the fractality of the universe itself. So we're at the perfect point in history, in the sense to make this conscious leap, not only to become the 5D reality, but also many are moving into the 6D reality and so on. So I think there's just one more here, and then we're going to get to what's taken place in this kind of modern era. So here we are. Here's the center of the galaxy here, and then of course the galaxy's all around behind the center, over and around here now. And then when we come out in this direction here, we come out past Lyra, which is here, the initial DNA hologram template initiated here. Then the Lyrians came out further, and they come out, Orion's here, the Pleiades is here, our solar system's here, Arcturus is over here. So everything that we hear about, talk about, read about the 15 dimensions, the 7 densities, all the ETs that are involved, etc., and what's going on here, basically is in this little neighborhood of the Milky Way galaxy. Astronomers, channels, etc., don't talk about anything that is going on all around here. It's just our little local neighborhood. So we have to keep that in mind. As far as the administration at the Galactic Center, next image that we'll have here, as far as the Galactic Center administration is concerned, this project is just one of a number of other projects that they've probably got going on in different parts of the galaxy. So we get to here, and then we'll next step after this one, we bring it up more to the present. So here we have the galaxy again. Our sun is here, our solar system's here. So this is just simple alphanumerics. Again,
222 adds up to all those things. The grandfather, ego, spirit, all that is 222. Those numbers.
yes.
Wow.
Yes. The reason it is doing it like this is that, again, this goes back to Dan Winter, who should get a Nobel Prize at least. He was able to show that the lower case curvy English letters are snippets of the golden ratio spiral going through the center vortex, going through the center of a torus. Now, that is just a simple statement, and there's a little bit more to it. But he's able to show that our English alphabet, our English letters, are embedded in the fractal, which goes all the way through all the dimensions, which goes to the Shapely and to the great attractor and so on. So it makes sense that we can come up with words and phrases which are to do with larger and larger scenarios, and we can bring through information and link different things together via this embedding in the dimensional or multi-dimensional fractal that the universe is based on the golden ratio. So over here, when A is 1 and Z is 26, then this list here, 222, not that the number 222 is the important part, it is the connection, the resonance of the phrases and how they link together. So it's just simply the center of the galaxy, galactic wide unity field, the spirit of Christ overseeing the galaxy, celestial civil service, galactic administration, real galactic federation, integrated overview, avatar of synthesis, at the coordination hub, etc. Group psychology, 12 departments, the image, the model we were looking at before, etc. And then just quickly,
give us like your
Helio.
understanding of the Galactic Administration, just for people that might not know what that is. Could you give us your understanding of what exactly Galactic Administration is?
Yeah, sure. So when a group of when a group of souls, the 144 souls, and this is just simplifying it, but the group of 144 souls, when each soul has gone through all the dimensions that we hear about, then each soul reconnects or becomes part of the oversoul. That completed oversoul, with all the experience and wisdom from all the souls out experiencing through all the dimensions, so that oversoul then is a complete unit, joins with other oversouls that are also complete units, and they have big jobs in front of them. And one of those jobs is to facilitate what's going on in a galaxy. That's a very simplified way of looking at it, but that is sort of what it is. It's groups of completed oversouls getting together as a group. It's down here, like we have 222. We have meeting. This is, at a galactic scale. Whole system design, the galactic community.
They have meetings like regularly and stuff, and they talk about our world and what to do about different things that are happening, right?
In a very simplified way, yes, in very simplified. Another way of saying that is that the positive ETs here on Earth look to the galactic administration for advice, on how to, on what to do and so on and so on. And of course, there's certain days when you do that best, and that's connected to the helioastrology.
Oh, very
Here,
cool.
here we have it number 253. A1Z26, heliocentric astrology, which we're going to mention with most of the next images we're going to look at here. So heliocentric astrology initiated in the solar core, which for starseed is kind of the sun's kind of a portal into and out of our solar system. So starseed that have arrived in the ETs, positive ETs that have arrived in the past have come through the sun and then towards our planet. Starseed activation chamber, tuned to the galactic center, represent galactic council, awakening starseed, on and on it goes. So that's sort of the frame of reference that we're looking at here. And then we get to this one. This
Look at that.
I'm not sure.
Eye of God. What's that? Eye of God. That's so cool.
I'm not sure whether you can. Not sure where you can see that there.
Let me see. Yeah, I can kind of see the names now. Yeah.
I
see Hercules.
Originally I could slide that across, but anyway, can't do it there. Just make it a bit smaller. So this is a map of the stars. Is the light shining on that too much, the sunlight? Let's see if I can close my door.
No, yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Or has it changed?
No, it's the same.
To me,
Good or bad, it's the same. Yeah. We can
okay.
see the shapes, but we can't read the names, but we can see the shapes of the star systems.
Okay, so this is like, imagine your head is the sun, and from the sun you're looking out. This whole map here on this flat piece of paper, you could wrap it around your head, and you're looking at the stars. So when we look towards the galactic center, here it is. Sagittarius with his bow and arrow is just releasing his arrow, heading towards the galactic center. Sagittarius is looking for the truth. And here's Lyra, the solar system that the original human DNA template was kind of set in motion. That is now what they call the Eye of God, or the Ring Nebulae. It's a famous
Oh, the Ring
post.
Nebula. Oh, the Ring
Yes,
Nebula.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like a big eye, cosmic eye,
Oh,
they call it.
so cool. Mm-hmm.
So if that is true, that's the past origin of the human DNA template. So that big eye is kind of like looking out in this direction. So from there, of course, different ET groups or different groups from Lyra come out and they start inhabiting different star systems.
Mm-hmm.
Here is the one that we're going to be talking about. This is a group of stars here forming a constellation. It's called Aquila, the Eagle. And the main star, the biggest one there, that star there is called Altair. It's the head of the eagle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that, Matt. Now we're going to move forward and get to, there we are here. Well, okay, so just get that a little bit smaller.
Yeah, we'll zoom out. We can see the whole thing. Oh, Atlantis, Poseidon's Island, Greenland.
So this is kind of backtracking a little bit. This is just showing where this is a great, is that too small?
A little bit. Yeah, we just make it a little bit bigger.
Okay, there we go. So can't quite see all of it. I don't know why I can't pull it across like I could before. Anyway, this is just the well, this is some great work that was done by a woman, Chrisana Duran. She's passed on now, but she was a child psychic, and she was telepathically in connection to Arcturians. She's a Cherokee Indian, and she also was interacting in a certain way with the ascended adepts that live up in the Himalayas. So she done some great work on plotting where the Arcturians, she mentioned them in detail in the Pacific. She plots where the Atlantis was, where Poseidon, the capital of Atlantis, it's right here on this kind of the Strait of Gibraltar there on the southern coast of Portugal and Spain. And she plots where they went up to the Arctic up here, and eventually coming down into down here, and so on and so on. So I'm not going to go into any more detail on that. Unfortunately, her website has closed. There's not much out there.
Well, then over there it says Hyperborean, Pleiadian, Viking mixed with Celts and Aldebaran, European, Atlantean, and Mary Magdalene bloodline. That was the thing you said earlier. This is the order of it, or this is another group, something else.
Yeah, this what she was doing was she was mapping, because she was very good at understanding in the past. This is just her research into land masses changing and sinking and rising and so on. So in the past, she was able to point out the journey from Atlantis up to the Arctic. Then they become known as the Hyperboreans. So the Pleiadians and the Aldebarans, some coming down here, becoming, the Scots and the Vikings, and some going over to Norway and then eventually down here and so on. So it's kind of her, although this is these red lines come, this is not her work. This is just plotting the kind of like connection to the Vikings. But it's great research. Unfortunately, a lot of it has disappeared off the internet. Hopefully it'll come back. Now's our entry into multidimensional psychology in a way which hopefully is more sort of understandable.
Very cool.
So here we've got the regular kind of chakra system. So if we start at the bottom here and just go up these chakras, we've got the first dimension, or I'm going to use the word density rather than dimension. It's almost the same thing, but I'll clarify as we go. So we've got the first dimension, second chakra, second dimension, third chakra, third dimension, fourth chakra, heart, etc. So the way to see this is that this is the initiations, the raw material, the law of one, the tree of life, different groups. So within each of these chakras, so here's the yellow chakra. This is the third dimension. This is the third density. This is where the bulk of humanity live. They're in the third density. This is the rational thinking mind. So we've got physical, emotional, feelings, and then we have the rational thinking mind. So in most spiritual systems, they break down that third dimension. They break it down into a smaller kind of fractal of it, but it's based on the octave. So we have here yellow, red. So this is humanity going through the very first stages of the third dimension, learning how to think properly. So we've got yellow, red, yellow, orange, yellow, 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 green, yellow, blue, blah, blah, blah. So over here, we've got some ideas here. So the bulk of humanity, what we consider the mainstream, are living clearly by the key words of the traits and qualities, good and bad, of this chakra, and this chakra, but linked to the third chakra. We've got a certain number of people that are living in yellow, third level, yellow, red. These are people that want to go around shoot people, guns. This is battle. This is wars. This is violence, etc.
Like
The
power
negative.
survival kind of stuff.
The negative side of it. Then we've got yellow orange, the second subplane, they call it, of third density, the mainstream. So these people, the second chakra is all about glamour, revenge, and all this kind of thing. And then we've got the third chakra. This is yellow, yellow. This is science. This is rational thinking. So this is where the bulk of think of the teacher, the libraries, the universities, all this kind of thing. This is yellow, yellow, the middle, more or less, of the third density. Then we have people that are starting to awaken to empathy and are starting to realize that sharing and so on is more useful than combating ideas and debating and that kind of thing. And it goes on, and then we have the inspired artists up here at the throat chakra. They speak with inspiration. Then we've got the insightful level of the third density, and then we have the top level going in through the crown chakra, or out through the crown chakra, and eventually then that links to the first level of the fourth density, or the fifth dimension. Fourth density and fifth dimension equal the same thing. So that is sort of like a simple map that has been used by spiritual groups in the past to map the different levels and sub-levels of each person has to go through all these. Some go through very quickly, some is just going through for the first time in a way. So it's a system that's I'm just going to use here, or have used, what I call multidimensional psychology. Once you get to the fourth density, it changes a bit in the sense that we don't use octaves, we use the golden ratio, and fractality becomes more useful.
So people's
So with that,
personality changes as they go through these changes a lot, right? Like people's psychology really changes as they go through these evolutions or changes. Yeah.
yes, exactly. In this level, third density, even the top of what the mainstream look to, the inspirational people in the mainstream. We've got Einstein and so on. So they still don't understand reality, not really to a deep degree. So once we go into the first levels of the fourth density, or the fifth dimension, then the reality is seen in a more direct way. So then we start to interact with the golden ratio harmonics, the embedding into larger and larger realities, and so on. So ooh, I had something else to say. It's just slipped my mind. So maybe I'll pick it up. We'll go to the next. Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, just for the fun of it, really. So what they call the fifth dimension, or the initial stages of the fifth dimension, which I'm going to call green, red. So green, red. So green is empathy, heart, and so on. The entrance into the fifth dimension / fourth density. So the first entry into that is red. Well, that's like Luke Skywalker in Friends. They want to do battle, or they can do battle. So the saber, the light sword of Luke Skywalker, is really not a sword to fight with. It's ideas, it's thought forms, it's social networking, for example. And then we go to the second level, green orange. The orange is the ray of creative play, the way of the artists. So those that are, think of all the organic festivals that are taking place and all the artwork we see on Facebook and all the new music, and et cetera. So their approach to teaching the third density is via music and so on, and joy and celebration. There's just a TV show on Netflix at the moment. It's called Cleo. It's about the collapse of the wall, the Berlin Wall there. And the TV show it has a lot of wisdom in it. There's the warrior, a woman. She's kind of here representing this, trying to battle for the good and so on. But one of her best friends is a DJ, and they're talking about techno, 1989, and it's techno and the music and the fun and the celebration. That is in that TV show. They're talking about this chakra. So there's sort of ideas out there representing some of these ideas, and in multidimensional psychology, you can kind of isolate where people are coming from, what level they're kind of working at, and who they're trying to influence. So now we've got a few maps to do with the astrology side of it. And so here we're just going to start off here. We've got the sun in the middle here. This is just past a week and a half or so ago. This is a map for July 25th. This is what the Mayans called, or not so much the Mayans, but the dream spell calendar. They called it,
right? This was the full moon day, I think. It was the 25th was the full moon, I believe, right?
This is I've got that map here. That's the next one. This is a couple of days after, and you'll see it on the map. So here we have the dream spell day out of time. This is the Earth. Of course, the sun's here and the Earth's here. It's at 3 degrees of tropical Aquarius. I've just put that sun there just because everybody's familiar that on July 25th, the sun's here in early Leo, but of course the sun's not there. It's in here. It's just looking from the Earth through the sun and projecting it there. But on that date, July 25th, if we were to count the days from around here to get to the direction to the galactic center, that's 144 days. It's 144 degrees. It's 4 nodes on the decagon. The Earth's here. It's 1 node. It's 36 degrees away. The exact arrow to the galactic center is 27 degrees. There it is there, out in the tropical Sagittarius. So the Mayan, or the dream spell, and the Mayan calendar, they're embedded in the golden ratio fractal linked to the galactic center, the Hanam Q. So that's that day. If we go to the next image here.
Hanaku, that's a symbol of the 2 circles within that have the 4 directions, right? And that's the symbol of the galactic center.
Well, it's that kind of black and white geometric spiral. So as soon as you start talking about the galactic center, you're embedded in that longer wave that links to the galactic center. But of course, the galactic center is already embedded in the larger supercluster center and the great attractor center and so on. So they there at the galactic center are already part of the supergalactic center, the great attractor, the Shapley, etc. It's just us here in our solar system during this current era are also now, due to the precision of the equinoxes and so on, the Earth's wobble, it's now during this era that we're embedding into the galactic, or linking and embedding or interacting with the galactic center, galactic administration. It happens every 13,000 years for that 26,000 year cycle. So now we're getting towards the contemporary era and what's going on in the world around us in this kind of modern era. Also, this is the full moon that happened about 8 or 9 days ago, which happened here at the last degree
Yeah,
of
that's interesting.
Capricorn. And we're going to link that
It was the last
to
degree of Capricorn. Does that mean like it's ending a cycle with shadow stuff, or like what is that multidimensional psychology wise? What do you sense that means like for all of us, kind of? Or I know it's different for everybody based on their chart, but what does that last degree of Capricorn full moon dot mean, kind of right before the new year kind of thing, you know? The Egypt.
okay. So we have to be aware that this zodiac here is a geocentric zodiac, in the sense that if we look out through a telescope out in that direction on that date when the full moon was, no stars of Capricorn anywhere near there. Well,
Mm,
sorry, it's not quite true. Instead of the end of Capricorn, we'd be looking at the first few stars of Capricorn. It's actually the beginning of Capricorn. That's due to the precision of the equinoxes and the slippage of our Earth as it slips around the zodiac in a 26,000 year cycle. It's a difficult thing to explain without little gifts that can show you sort of the dynamics of it. It's not so much that it's at the end of Capricorn. Now, because the 3D world is living in the matrix, or not
mm,
all of them, but majority, they will, of course, be affected by the Western subconscious, which believes that this is the end of Capricorn. So for them, it's
mm,
you're going to influence them in that kind of way.
mm,
For the fifth dimensional / fourth density people, of course, they are interacting with 3D world, so it'll have a different influence, and they'll perhaps make use of it in a more coherent kind of way, a more potent way.
mhm.
So it's not that that side of it is the most important part. What we're going to look at here.
Got it. Mhm.
So we're going to get into this. We've got some symbols here. We've got the head star in the constellation of the eagle. The head star is called Altair. And this is how now we're going to link this to modern day US politics, which in a sense is like the canary in the coal mine for the rest of the world. And so just a couple of comments first
Mhm,
about who and what has gone on to get to this point
mhm,
in a slightly different way. So we've got a number of different ET groups that have landed on the planet in these different places in the past, and the negative ones that have had intentions to try and take over the planet in a way, they've set in motion their I'll call them holographic thought forms from ancient days in Atlantis and Mesopotamia area and so on.
mhm,
So those thought forms and those holograms that they set in motion are not embedded in the fractal, the golden ratio fractal of reality. Negative thoughts and negative intentions are not based around golden ratio. It's impossible for them to embed in the fractal of larger and larger waveforms. They fall short of that. They can't see it. They don't know what is coming, because as far as the those that are embedded in that fractal. So the
mhm,
negative have had an intention here, set in motion tens of thousands, if not longer, years ago, for a certain events to come to its conclusion at this time during the last century or so. So they had that in mind. The positive ETs and the adepts up in the Himalayas. Now I'm
mhm.
just going to use an example here. There's a famous adept up in the Himalayas called Babaji. Now, I don't know whether people have heard of Babaji,
Oh,
but
yes.
Babaji is a, sorry?
Oh, yes, yes. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah. So Babaji is, uh, I'm going to use the sloppy word, but what can you do? An ascended master. So Babaji is one of these people, or one of these individuals that can dematerialize his physical body,
Mhm,
can live in a non-physical reality as a light body, and can move faster than the speed of light. So I'll give you an example. When we're dying, that moment as we're dying, it's common, it's often said that our whole life flashes before us in 2 or 3 seconds. So that 2 or 3 seconds is the natural environment for a higher dimensional person like a Babaji and the other ascended beings. So this is beyond the ETs like the Pleiadians and so on. So at the level of reality that Babaji and friends live in, they are moving at that speed, that 2 seconds, that can encase 70 years of 3D life. So those higher dimensional Babajis and so on, they are working at an incredible speed. Babaji can materialize in your room there, could say something to you or share a hologram with you, can dematerialize, arrive here in my room a split second later, then can go on from here, go to Japan, say something to somebody there, and go on and on and on and on and on. They don't need to sleep, they don't need to eat, they don't need any time off, they're living their bliss. So for them, that is their reality. That's how fast they're doing things, along with all the others that are at that level. Whereas the negative ETs, basically their waveforms or their thinking, their actions, not embedded in the golden ratio spiral or not embedded into higher realms and longer waveforms, they're trapped in the sense that they're only capable of doing things in more or less the same speed as regular 3D humans, a little bit faster in the sense that they can get together in summons and work with the elements and try and force the elements and so on to do things. So basically that's their approach. That's the way they do things. So when we get into this modern current era, the last few decades and where we are now, the negatives have had this ongoing plan on the planet here for tens of thousands of years, hoping to fulfill their mission in this current era before the reappearance of Christ or the coming together of the alignment to the galactic center and so on. So they've got their plans, they've had them up and running and so on. And always, every time they come up with a new plan, the positives working at that incredibly faster time have already seen their plan, have already orchestrated an alternative plan to offset the negative plan well ahead of time. So every time the negative sets a plan in motion, the positives and all the people that are working on the planet here that are connected to the positive embedded in the fractal, that negative plan is always pushed to the side, overcome, sidetracked, etc., etc. In whatever way it is, it's happening in different ways. So the negatives plans are always seen well in advance, even hundreds of years in advance. So the positives, this is Rudolf Steiner and the Theosophists and so on. When people are sleeping at night, they go to schools up in the Himalayas, and the advanced beings like Babaji and co, they're teaching people. And they're teaching people in politics, in the arts, in the sciences, and so on and so on. So when they wake up in the morning, they have an idea, and it's come, from that experience, and they go on to create, some sort of new thing, develop something new, which is designed to offset the negatives plan. So all this is going on. All this is going on behind the scenes. It's not really known. For example, a useful thing at this moment in time is to think of what was happening between the First and Second World War, 100 years ago. So the Theosophists, the adepts up in the Himalayas, they could see what was going on, they could see what was coming, but they put their weight behind. They whispered in the ear of Churchill. They whispered strategies in the ear of Churchill to overcome the Nazi, the fascist side of things, fully aware that after the Second World War, Churchill would be involved in giving part of Palestine to the Israelis. So they had to pick the best of two, not necessarily evils, but two, ways of doing things. They had to pick the better one.
Wow.
And so this is what's happening at the moment as well, is that the positives, the adepts in the Himalayas, the ascendeds, and so on, are having to look at the situation. Of course, they've looked at it deeply, probably have done for hundreds of years. They can see what's coming, and they have to make choices of who they support in this moment in time, who they're going to get behind. So now we are getting into the politics of things. So this is here is, as it says here, the Great Conjunction 2020 of Saturn and Jupiter. So in general geocentric astrology, that happened, I think it was December 21st, 2020. It's significant in the sense that it was at the, the solstice. But that conjunction there, in the real world of astronomy, the heliocentric astrology, that actual conjunction here of, there's the two symbols, Jupiter and Saturn, both at 1 degree 50, almost 2 degrees. That's where it happened. But it happened not on December 21st. It happened on November the 3rd, the election day in US politics.
Oh, wow.
2 degrees, we'll call it. So the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn together exactly on that day. And of course, 2 degrees out in that direction, which we'll get to in the next map, is exactly, I'll just show you. Oh, a couple down here. There it is. 2 degrees in that direction. That is the head star of the constellation of the eagle. And of course, the eagle is the symbol for the US and specifically the US politics, the US military, and so on. So we'll just go back here a sec. So that was back there in 2020, November 3rd, back there. So that event, that election, and so on, taking place back then, that this conjunction here at that point in time, that initiated something, a change, something new. Jupiter's all about the new, broadening, opening. It's also hierarchies, Jupiter. Saturn's all about systems, structures, and karma, and things that are in the way, that are slowing things down. So the broadening and opening and the closing and keeping things as they are, they came together on that election day in 2020 there.
Wow.
Then this is just showing where it was on December 21st, as I was saying.
That was the eclipse day, right? That was the eclipse. I remember that day very distinctly, the energy of the world that day. Yeah. That's right before COVID started. I remember like the world's energy shifted, and then that's right then suddenly COVID hit the whole world, was right after this eclipse, right? So exactly 4 years ago, about 4 years ago.
Yes, exactly. So just to sort of expand on the theme a little bit. So this is the same sort of wheel here, and we're back now in June 2000. We've got another conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter here over at this point. And then in the future, 2020, so this is the one we just talked about. The Jupiter and Saturn are here at this point at 2 to 3 degrees, or 2 degrees of Aquarius. So we're back to here. Remember, this was 36 degrees away from the galactic center. So as well as Jupiter and Saturn coming together, lined up with Altair, the head star and the eagle, linked to US politics, it was actually embedded into the galactic administration, pointing to the galactic center. Then, where is it? Then when we go down here, we can see that previously, so back, here we are, 2000. So here we are, June 21, 2000. So Jupiter and Saturn were conjunct. It's about a 20-year cycle. Every 20 years, these two planets get together. So when they got together here, here's the node of the decagon, the Stargate, more or less. Here's the node of the decagon linked to the galactic center. So they were together in 2000 on the node of the decagon linked to the galactic center. So there was a project set in motion linked to the galactic administration 2000, which we're in 2020, we're here linked again, Jupiter and Saturn linked to the galactic center. Over here, we've moved, here it is. We've moved forward. We're now December 3rd, 2040. Jupiter and Saturn get together again, but they're on this node linked to the galactic center. So we're in a cycle. We're right sort of in the middle of it, which is linking that conjunction, Jupiter and Saturn, to the desires or the will or the insights of the Galactic Center or the Galactic Administration. So we're kind of in an era where the influences of Jupiter broadening versus the holding things back, going back to the past way of doing things, Saturn. So we're kind of right in the middle of that. Let's go forward because we get to the back to here again. And here we are. Now this chart is drawn up for November the 5th, 2024. So we're back to our alignment again. We've got the eagle out in this direction at 2 degrees. And as November 5th arrives, this symbol here is Pluto. Pluto's at 1.5 degrees. So it's 99.8% lined up to Altair. So that's close enough to be exact. It's only half a degree away. So Pluto, we had Jupiter and Saturn there in 2020. Now Pluto's arrived there going into this election. If we were to go back just here a little bit. So here we had the full moon 8 days ago or so ago. We see Pluto was at almost 1 degree there. So it's there. And so this is called a conjunction as well. It's about 99% line up connection between the full moon, the Earth, and Pluto. So it really began about 10 days ago. So think back what was happening 10 days ago in the US political system. We have Trump being attempted assassination by strong Trump supporter, his family and the shooter, devout Trump supporters. So we had that happening, and we had the changeover in the Democrat side of it. We get Biden, he's out, and Kamala Harris is in. So that was the full moon linked, combined with Pluto, lining up to Altair. But as we move forward now along this next 3 months or so, we get to here, and on November the 5th this year, we have an even more direct lineup with Pluto lining up to Altair, the US political system, the US military system. Now, Pluto's outside of Neptune. Pluto's like Sherlock Holmes. Whatever Pluto's interacting with, Pluto will get to the depths, the truth, the real story, and expose that, bring it out so everybody can see it, so that transformation can take place. So there we have Pluto lining up with Altair, the US government, the US political system, and so on the day or the days around the election there. So there's big things coming up in the next 3 months connected to all the words that you can look on astrology about Pluto and the influences Pluto. So a couple of other things here that is happening also. Over here we have what they call a trans-Neptunian planetoid. It's outside of Neptune, its orbit, called Haramea. Haramea is the Hawaiian goddess that birthed all the gods and all the goddesses. This is the feminine archetype personified here in the Hawaiian mythology. So this distance, this red line here in astrology, is called a square. Squares are generally seen as challenging. So at this time, going through this next 3 months, these move incredibly slowly. So going into next year, there's a challenge between the political system Pluto's exposing around the feminine archetype. What is really going on in US politics about the feminine archetype, women's rights, the respect for nature, and all these kinds of things. And as well as that, at the same time, there's another trans-Neptunian down here called Morse. This one here is a purple line. And this is called a trine in astrology. Trines offer opportunity. They offer how to resolve or how to solve or how to move forward. Morse is the archetype of death, dying, and the renewal that takes place after that. So Pluto's going to spend all of 2024 going into the first few months of 2025 with these two aspects. It's going to have some kind of climax on November the 5th with this lineup here. So it's all to do with US politics. It's just unavoidably the case. It's just so clear. It's written in the stars.
So some kind of a
Then the
truth is
next,
going to come out and be uncovered. It says Pluto is the lord of the underworld, hence the hidden
yes,
information, right?
exactly. Keeping in mind what I said earlier about how the adepts like Babaji and so on, how they can see along future timelines. They're very coherent in their own makeup, therefore they have great ability to be able to surf along future timelines and make predictions and so on and so on. And they're working at that super fast time frame. Remember the 2 seconds at the end of our life, we see our whole life in a, so they're working at that speed. So they have this, they've got it nailed. They know what's happening. They've got their projects. They're whispering in the ears of the people that need to be whispered into, etc., etc. The negative side of it, every time they make a decision and take an action, it self-destructs. It's called entropy. It self-destructs as time goes on. In the past they had obelisks built around the planet, the negatives lining up and so on with different things. So those obelisks and so on, they're just crumbling in the sense of the there's no real power in those obelisks because they're not embedded in the golden ratio geometric Earth grid work, which connects to the sun, connects to the galactic center, and so on. So all the actions and implemented plans of the negative are falling apart or they're self-destructing. It's the pyramidal structure where the top of the pyramid trying to remain in charge of everything below the top of the pyramid. That pyramid is crumbling in real time during this era. When I say era, I mean a few years. So we're almost finished here in the sense of looking at these images. So we have Altair here. This one here is the next step. So we were talking about November the 5th, and that Pluto was almost 2 degrees here lining up to Altair. On January the 20th, which is inauguration day, the changeover and so forth, and the new president takes power and so on. Well, on that day, the Earth is here at 1 degree of Leo. And that means if we project like in normal astrology, we project the sun up here into 1 degree of Aquarius here, which again, during January 20th and January 21st, what initiated in 2020 with Jupiter and Saturn here, which then moved on to the full moon we've just experienced, the revelation of Project 2025, which has become global, the real agenda of the behind the scenes deep state cabal working through the Heritage Foundation and the other groups that are working towards the re-implementation of, a fascist state and so on. So as this changeover happen on January 20th, the lineup, Earth, Sun, Pluto, Altair is complete. It comes to its kind of fruition there. That's not to say that on that day everything.
And that's in January or January?
January 20th,
January 20th.
21st, 2020.
Right before.
For those in the States, for those living in the States, that's when the changeover of government takes place. So written in the stars with real astrology, with real alignments between major planets, especially Pluto, lining up with, out of all the stars in the sky, the one that represents the head of the eagle, the Western or the USA political military complex. So it's a clear, visible, not just astrology, but a map of astronomy that points all this out. So this is the universe revealing itself and how it might take place. And this is just the last one. So this was I just captured this on Facebook because I thought this was fun. The face you make when you realize the Heritage Foundation is the deep state. Now, of course, the Heritage Foundation, of course, are working for the deep state. You know, they
Mhm.
don't call themselves the deep state, but you only have to read or look into Project 2025. You know, it's like a middle-aged old white men's view of how how things should be, going back, say, 200 years.
Mhm.
So that's the end now. We've come to the end. I can close that.
Very, very cool.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Wow, that was so cool. So November, the changes coming up, leading to January, all starting from 2020. What a fascinating story.
Yes, and it's not something that sort of, in my view, I don't know what's going to happen
Mhm.
exactly. You know, the adepts in Himalayas might, but uh, it might not. There might not be a recognizable change between that day and the very next day or the day after.
Yeah.
But the process is visibly, astronomically, and astrologically, the process of transformation exactly on that, to do with that US political system. The process is getting a real deep, it's 150 years, uh, or even longer. I think it's longer. Maybe it's 220 years before Pluto would ever get back to that point again. So
Mm.
this is the era we're living in, and we can sort of see it by, if we pay attention to 3D. So we're back in 3D again. And
Mhm.
we're in the middle of 3D, yellow for the third density, yellow for the mental plane of third density.
Mhm.
They're squabbling over ideas, in those two political parties. They're squabbling over ideas. What's it going to be like going into 2025? You
Mhm.
got one side, they want Project 2025. You've got the other side, the Democrats, doing whatever they're doing. I don't agree with Democrats and all their different things like men's and women's sports and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But I would have to say that the adepts like Babaji and that are whispering in the ears of one side or other, like they did with Churchill, knowing that Churchill had his own faults and would lead to another thing which was going to be a problem. Who are they supporting going through this era? Now they may have another whole project in mind, which
Mhm.
is not exactly what I'm saying. They might have something else in mind, but
Mhm.
that's just the way I see it at this point in time.
I love that. I love how you explain that they know what the evil is going to do ahead of time because they can basically move through time, and they're always stopping them. It's almost like, like I love that. So that's how they're always stopping evil's great plans and they're intervening. And I do agree with you that like the people they support in the next few years, we're going to see the people that are connected to Babaji and who he's been supporting all along. I feel like I've been connected to him a long time and I love him very much. So very cool.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's not that they step forward with the lightsaber and
Hmm.
they it's a realm of ideas and PR. Like often the negative has the most money, so they got the most PR, so they can create conspiracies. This
Mhm,
is this came out in the court case with Donald Trump there a couple of months back.
mhm,
One of the guys that was on the stand, this is David Peckler. He runs a tabloid, or used to, and he had to speak the truth. He didn't know what the prosecution had as information, so if he lied, he would go to jail,
mhm,
perjury. So he was telling the truth in the sense, and he said on the stand there that he got together with Trump pre 2016, and
mhm,
they come up with a number of false claims
mhm,
about the Democrats, Hillary Clinton, and so on, and they promoted those false claims through his tabloid.
mhm,
Those false claims went to people like Alex Jones and the
mhm,
Fox News,
mhm,
Tucker Carlson, and so on. They promoted them, and they became the conspiracy
mhm,
theories of that era, which was set in motion by Rudolph Murdoch
mhm,
and the fake news.
mhm,
Rudolph Murdoch, part of the deep state, or at least working for them in some way or another.
mhm,
So the PR is how they kind of try
mhm,
and influence things,
mhm.
and
Interesting.
rather than actually getting out there and fighting about it.
Interesting. Managing the public's opinion is essentially how they deal with it, right? Like controlling people's minds and manipulating them.
You ever heard of Bashar? Bashar,
Yeah.
channeling to Daryl Ank,
Yeah.
been doing it for 30 odd years, something like that. So if a channel lasts for 30 odd years, I'm
Mhm.
not sure about what's going on at the moment, but a
Mhm.
long-term channel like that has to have a certain level of coherency.
Mhm.
Many channels start channeling, a couple of years later, you never hear about them again.
Mhm.
So for a channel to be coherent over a long period of time, that's embedded in the fractal.
Mhm.
So one of the things that Bashar said is that the best support for the negatives is
Mhm.
conspiracy theories giving the negative more power than
Mhm.
they actually have. And
Mhm.
that stops people from acting, and so on, and
Mhm.
creating. Mm.
Interesting. Like, yeah, like, and conspiracy theories, they started it like in the 60s when the hippie movement began, is when they came up with the term conspiracy theory to kind of downplay what all the hippies were saying about the war and Vietnam and all that, right? So they're trying to kind of like make everybody look silly, calling them conspiracy. But now it turns out all those theories are true. Everything we thought was a conspiracy theory now seems like a lot of it is true, right? So,
That is true.
yeah.
But of course, the negatives realized, oh, we can use our own PR and create conspiracies
And there's
ourselves.
opposite
And
conspiracy, untrue ones too. You're right. Yeah.
yes, yeah, that's like I said with David Peckler and Trump, they got together and they created conspiracies. And that went to Alex Jones, the Fox News, and then it become the global conspiracy theory of the day kind of thing.
Exactly. Yes.
Mm.
The truth is going to be
What,
coming out. Pluto's going to be bringing it out. Some of these conspiracy theories. Do you feel that's a possibility for November, January time?
that is Pluto's job. That
Mhm.
is Pluto's job.
Mhm.
So how fast all that happens post, going into 2025, I don't know exactly how fast. We've got another Jupiter and Saturn in 2040, which again links to the galactic center by the fractal golden ratio geometry.
Mhm.
So that's another part of the unfolding
Mhm.
puzzle
Yes.
of the changes that are taking place. By the way, those hippies, the hippie era, that was you've got the Second World War, you've
Mhm.
got millions of people dying, which
Mhm.
means there's a lot of matter
Mhm.
around for new bodies all
Mhm.
at once. So after the war, you get all these people coming back from the war, they want kids, and so then you got the hippie era, and you
Mhm.
got the Dolores Cannon and the Ra material, which say 60 million starseed were on the ground here in 1980. So the hippies, the indigo kids, indigo third eye chakra, aware, intuition.
Mhm.
So they were, that was an event that was taking place that the negatives didn't see coming. They
Mhm.
didn't know that was going to. If the hippies or the starseed and the wise woman and the adepts from the past who are reincarnating for this era, if that hadn't happened, then the negative we'd all be living in the Handmaid's Tale,
Mhm.
uh, the TV show called The Man in the High Castle, and Succession. A combination of those
Mhm.
three TV shows, we'd kind of be stuck in that reality.
So they've been slowing it down. The light workers have been kind of fighting back and not letting basically the deep state take over and enslave all of us, which is their goal essentially, right? So they've been stopping it and we're gonna continue to stop it as a group.
Yeah, exactly. The Babajis of the world up in the Himalayas, they have non-physical reality teaching centers, if you like.
Mhm.
And when people, before they incarnate, those that are aware and awake, and when people are dreaming or going to sleep in their dream life, they go to these schools. So when people are incarnating, if they're on the positive side of it, they're very intentional of when and where they're going to incarnate. I've done thousands of starseed charts to show that. So this plan to offset the negatives has been, it's hundreds of years long. So
Mhm.
different groups were incarnating along the timeline during the last 150 years or so. And each group that where they incarnate, every town on the planet has a herbologist or an artist or a pot, making pots or so everywhere around the planet, intentional incarnation by awake and aware people they're there. It's like Manchurian candidates all over the planet. Some are aware of what they're doing, some maybe not so much aware of it in their conscious mind. Same thing in politics and all those things. You've got people incarnating into those situations to play a specific role at a specific time. They don't know that they're a starseed or anything, but when the time comes, their intentions, and they step forward or whatever they do. Like I did Elizabeth Warren's chart. I've done a number of famous people's charts. Elizabeth Warren was born lined up to the galactic center. So she is on a roll. She is a great starseed chart.
She
I
definitely
don't
has
know
a
where
lot of
she's going to go.
fire inside her, which I like. Like she's like tiny, but she's got a lot of fire inside her. So you could tell she's channeling some of that star medicine into her as she's talking for sure. Who are some of the other famous people that are starseed that you could mention? I know John Lennon is one, obviously, was one.
Yeah, John Lennon, Paul, and George, all three of them born on nodes of the decagon that's linked to the galactic center. So they birthed as a soul group with a project which was going to change reality. And of course, that's what they did.
Wow.
But other famous people, there's just so many of them. The author of all the books, Alice Bailey, this is 100 years ago. She spent 30 to 40 years, I think, channeling one of the adepts from the Himalayas there. Well, she was born and she died exactly lined up to the galactic center. And other people, Philip K. Dick, Frank Zappa, there's just so many people in different areas of life that were starseed, or their consciousness was at a certain level. They've been through a certain level of initiations and so on, that they, when they birthed, decided to do it, leave themselves or leave me, a clear message written in the stars that they were working with the higher realms, working with the galactic administration and so on. Most of course, they're not conscious that they're doing it, but they're just doing their creative thing, living their bliss, which is all you really need to do to embed into the fractal linking to higher realms.
Living our bliss, right? So that means like living a life
True bliss.
in alignment with our heart, right? Like we're living our life and we also have a connection to source and our life feels joyful. And then you're saying that actually is one of the best things we can do for the universe, is because that joy that emanates then affects the field so much when we're living in that state, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And I think you were talking about also the new 5D, like governmental reorganization and the template
Oh,
for the social
oh,
order. If you want to mention anything about that,
right.
or we can also do that next time, whatever you feel.
Right. If you've got the time, it'll only take a couple of minutes, but we'd have to go back to the slide. I'll
Perfect.
click that slide again.
Please do that. Thank you.
Okay. I'd forgotten about this one.
I love this chart.
So this is something I've been working on for 20 years or so, I guess.
Wow.
And so we're using what this here is, I call it a self-organizing and dynamic social structure. So what we've done is that this is like a flat surface template of these pentagons, but really if you cut all the nature out in the background, you can fold that shape up there. It'll fold into a polyhedron called a dodecahedron. And the dodecahedron is the template to get all the golden ratios and all the fractals that link throughout the universe and so on. To cosmotopologists, the universe is a dodecahedron shape. It's just that we've been able to identify the center of the dodecahedron at the cosmic scale. So when when I began looking at this and thinking about it and contemplating it, of course, I thought of King Arthur and the Round Table, the 12 and so on, and Jesus and the 12. And we had that model again at the beginning with the 12 that pack around the center and so on. So it's all based on the actual golden ratio fractal geometries. So I just started off by, normal governmental kind of areas of departments and so on. So we've got public services, we've got permaculture, we've got the environment and the arts and education and culture and urban design and infrastructure and all that kind of things. We've We've got one over here, the galactic community, we've got health and everything there. So once we've got the 12 basic ones, areas worked out, then within each of those we've got sort of subgroups, you know, the people working in government in different departments would be another way of saying that. So within each department or within each area, like public services, waste management, water supply, peacekeeping, so many of these things are already part of government, but we've just added some new ones in, like some of the new sciences, where it is up here. So some of the new, you know, negentropic sciences, multidimensional principles, space travel, you know, the sciences based around that. And then we've got the galactic one over here, people working in the field like you and I are perhaps working in. Whoops. Here we've got the star families and exopolitics, the different, you know, different ET groups and what they're all about, etc., the history of galactic politics, and so on. So we break it up here. So this template, I've put it on my Facebook group and on my Facebook page. Many people have taken this or downloaded it and shared it and so on. And there's groups around the planet, both on the ground, community on the grounds, but also online communities. They're kind of using this as a template. And I've always said to people, well, just if you don't agree with something, just white it out and put your own little, you know, your own topic, your own version in there. And so this is out there. And to me, this is kind of like how a 5D collective would kind of self-organize. It would be obvious and apparent that someone like myself would be over here, you know, Star Family, whatever one over here. And the healers would be just natural. You go to this person for this thing, you know. So it's a template which is just there so that people can think about it and then plan around it. It's kind of storyboarding it into reality as time goes on here. The collective timeline unfolds.
So you see it as like, it's kind of like it's already begun. A lot of it has already begun. And do you see like that this can come to be fully, like if all the light workers basically get involved in different categories, does your intuition or your logic give you a good feeling about that?
I think it works a bit differently. You know, like people like us don't want to be told what to do or labeled or so it's a self-organizing and dynamic structure in the sense, even structure is probably the wrong word. So where I live it's 5,000 people that live in this sort of area, and 25% of the voters here in the past used to vote for the New Zealand Green Party. So it's a quarter of the voting population. So where I live, I'm not going out and saying, well, you have to be in there and this person's there or anything like that. It's just self-organizing. I know who in my local environment here, who the gardener is, who's the skilled permaculture person is. Everybody knows who that is. So that person's and that group of people, they're already there. We've got group housing projects underway. So maybe at some time in the future it'll formulate into kind of more of a recognizable system. But at this point, it's just that people already are working in these fields without having to know anything about this. Other people know who they are, respect them for what they do, and they have their own contributions and their own skills and so on. So it's kind of dynamic, it's evolving, and it's self-organizing in the sense that it's just people know who's doing what and so on. There's a famous term, the 5th-dimensional or / fourth density social complex, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I sort of began this was to kind of put out some ideas on what that might look like.
I love that. I think it's so great because they say like without a vision, people perish, right? That's like a saying. And so this gives us a vision to start. And so now we have a hope for the future. I feel like this vision is like a North Star for us. We're looking at it and we're going to just slowly, like you said, sovereign self-organization. Each of the light workers are going to end up in one of the categories. And so I love that. And I've shared it with a lot of people. I just keep telling people, just hold this vision. No matter what happens, hold this vision. But that's where we're all going.
That's right. And the beauty of it is it's embedded in the larger fractals. So we had some new alphanumerics about the galactic administration at the center of the galaxy, the alphanumerics there. And on that same group of phrases, we had the 12 departments overseeing the galaxy, avatar as synthesis. They're all there on that same sort of vibration. So the structure itself, even though we're using it, we could use it here, it's embedding in exactly how the higher dimensionals are doing it themselves, because they're embedded in the fractal of reality. And already cosmotopologists will tell us that the universe itself is that very shape. So we're kind of nesting into the higher realms in the very way that they all do things.
Oh, I love that it goes together. That yeah, that there is the sacred geometry even in the blueprint design, which is why it's going to naturally develop. Because I think you were saying like when that mathematical structure is there, things just harmoniously develop, right? Versus when it's the other one, you said they self-destruct when it's different.
Yeah, yeah. They don't have the waveforms of the golden ratio, even if they're sitting there trying to. Even
Mhm.
if they build golden ratio structures for houses, or they build a golden ratio obelisk kind of network,
And
because
that's
they don't
because
have
of
the,
their inner essence, like it's that
yeah,
their soul is not connected to source, or somehow it's
that's right.
all
It's
interesting.
yeah,
So even
that's right.
if
It's
they
not
build the
connected.
structure, they can't create the energetic power that they need. Because I heard they're trying to create black holes to use for energy. I don't know if you've heard about that, but they're talking about like creating something like that. But I was like, that's interesting. Like they were saying they're gonna put iron at the center of it or something like that. I was reading about it, but I didn't know what.
The same project, is it?
Yeah, some kind of about
I think
creating
it's just a
for
general,
energy.
yeah. I mean, it's just a general statement in the sense that negative actions, negative thoughts end up self-destructing. That's not to say they can't cause havoc along the way, but
Mhm.
the positives have already seen it coming, already set in motion an alternative to sidetrack that negative project just before it gets going. Though, so there's a number of different things going on all at the same time.
Very good.
It's just the beauty of it is that the positives, especially as I mentioned, the Babajis of the world,
Mhm.
working in that time frame, like 2 seconds, their whole life flashes
Mhm.
before our eyes as we're dying. So that is living in a higher dimension. That 2 seconds, which
Mhm.
covers 70 years, that 2 seconds, that's how fast, that's the normal way of being, and the speed of accomplishment of
Mhm.
a Babaji. So
Wow.
their level of achievement, what they can accomplish in 2 seconds, is 70, 80 years long, as
Wow.
far as we're concerned. So every 2 seconds, they can accomplish 70 or 80 years of 3D influence or impact. Every 2 seconds, they can do that. They don't need to sleep. They don't need to eat. They don't need rest time. They're following their bliss. They're just doing it.
Oh, I love
So
that.
that's the way they are. That's who they are. So there's no way that the negative, even the negative, they're stuck in this reality. Even what they call the fifth dimensional negatives, they're still stuck in a almost a time frame, almost like we are.
Mhm.
So they can do things, but it's sloppy, it's slow, it takes time and years to, you know. So they just don't have any chance really of really fulfilling their goals. That's not to say they can't create havoc along the way.
But wow, it's very comforting to hear from me that basically that whatever evil plans, good's gonna know about it and they're gonna interject, and that there is some truth basically coming to light, which is gonna hopefully help humanity see the things that has been hidden from them, and then uh, whoever can choose to step into whatever they want to choose to step into after they see the truth, right?
That's the Pluto lining up to Altair, So much will be revealed between now and November, but also post November going into 2025 and so on. I don't know what it is. I didn't see the assassination attempt of Trump coming. I don't think anybody did.
I felt
Uh,
like they were gonna
and
try to kill him. I was like, they're gonna try to kill him. They're not gonna let him get to power. And then they were like gonna kill him because I was like, because he has so much support, and I know they don't like that because there's a lot of people that like him in America. So I know they're gonna try to kill him, but I like Kennedy personally. He's such a nice guy, but they're not letting him, get up there. But yeah, let's see if they let Trump live till then. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, the most interesting thing about that, it was that a strong Trump supporter was the person that did the shooting.
Mhm,
And his family, they had placards in their front lawn,
mhm.
Trump supporters, and all his online presence, his social networking of the shooter, strongly supportive of all the Project 2025 ideas.
So
So
it's
it
kind of
wasn't
like
as
he's
if it was,
finding out his hidden enemies, maybe, right? Like if it's kind of like the hidden enemies before he gets ready. Doesn't that sometimes planets do that, right? Like help us know hidden enemies or something like that. Like they act like a supporter, but they're actually an enemy, maybe. In his case, you're
oh,
saying.
no, no, no. Well, the Trump and the Republicans
Mhm.
want to blame that assassination attempt on the
Mhm.
Democrats, but they
Oh,
can't
Democrat.
because
Mhm.
all his history, all the guy's history and his family,
Mhm.
his father was picked up about 2014 as a strong Trump supporter, by analysis of computer looking of what he was doing and so on. So it's been the whole family was strongly supportive of Trump and all the ideas,
Mhm.
Project 2025, old white boys, KKK,
Mhm.
the modern version of that. So they can't account for, as yet, they can't account for why a strongly supportive Trump person would go and try and shoot him. So they haven't quite got to that yet. But before any of that, the whole family were part of that side of that team, they're battling each other. It's like two teams on a football field. They're
Mhm.
battling away in the mid realms of 3D. It's easy to see that the Trump side of it is yellow, third density,
Mhm.
orange, and red. The orange, second sublevel, glamour, go to a Trump rally, and revenge, that's all he ever wants to do.
Mhm.
And he's strongly supportive of guns. They go around shooting at black people and all that. So that's yellow, orange, and yellow, red, the two lower subplanes. On the
Mhm.
other side of it, as far as I can see, predominantly the Democrats are yellow, yellow. They'd rather debate. They'd rather look at the ideas and
Mhm.
so on, how things would change. They want to stop guns and so on. So they're all embedded in the middle of third density, both sides. It's
Mhm.
just that you've got Elizabeth Warrens and Bernie Sanders. It's
Mhm.
like the behind the scenes cabal and deep state have had control of everything for thousands of years, and now some of the mice on the treadmill, or it's like Frankenstein, jumps out of the petri dish and
Mhm.
no longer plays ball. So all of a sudden, people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders,
Mhm.
they can't be controlled anymore
Mhm.
by that behind the scenes cabal. And
Mhm.
then they've jumped out of it and they kind of trying to work towards the positive, to work towards yellow green, empathy for other people,
Mhm.
sharing resources and so on. So that's yellow green, and some of those people are like that.
Mhm.
Not everybody. So I'm just generalizing, but
Yeah.
predominantly one side is much, much different than the other side at this point in time. Might not have been like that 10 years ago, might not be that in 10 years in the future, but that's sort of the current situation, as far
Yeah.
as I can see.
Yes, no, that's very well said. Very well said. How like, that all these different things are kind of like bringing up all these different things that we're basically seeing the collective shadow of all the candidates, right? And the different shadows are going to be coming out and then the underlying ground and stuff. So I think it's kind of cool that none of us really know what's actually coming. We just know there's a lot coming, and I think we're all
Mm.
just kind of preparing for it. And what are some? Do you have any advice for light workers? Because you've been doing this a long time. You've been researching and doing all this stuff. It's like, what is some advice you have for light workers right now, like keeping their vibration high and basically making it through the next few months and years and stuff? Anything you
Well, really, I'm just going to echo Bashar,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, to me, the idea is that anybody that is following their true bliss, what they really love to do, you know, whether that's in the arts or permaculture or minding children or whatever it is. So as long as we all are not overtaken by depression or thinking that the negative is going to win or anything like that, as long as we're following our true passion, some of that might be networking about what the negative are doing, but as long as we're following our bliss and feeling that and have that feeling, then we're embedded in the fractal. Bliss and the fractal of the golden ratio are the same thing. That's different words for the same thing. So we're embedded, we're connected to our oversoul, we're connected to what all the higher realms are focused on doing, and so on. So as long as we're following and creating and doing what our true feelings of joy and bliss are, then that's really all we need to focus on, or at least that's all we need to do in our actions.
I love that. That's so helpful because then people know like that they just have to focus on what brings them bliss. And then that they will stay in the high vibration. Even if there's like a stressful day, just do music or something that brings you that bliss feeling. And we'd love to have you back another time to talk about music, because I know that's another thing that you know a lot about. And it's one of my favorite tools to use. And so I would love to have you another time to talk about music too. That would be great, great. Anything else you feel like sharing as we're wrapping up today's conversation, Graham? Anything left?
I feel like we've rambled on for long enough. It's hard enough to watch an hour-long video. So,
Perfect, perfect. Well, thank you again so much, Grayham Forscutt. You're a legend. We love you. Thank you for coming back. Everybody's gonna love this video, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Bye
thanks
bye.
for the opportunity. See you
Thank you
next time.
so much. Bye bye.